Early this week I was looking at the news and I found this video and oh my gosh, you kind of have a feeling this stuff's going on in Massachusetts. Over the last couple of years, I knew a lot of people who have left, and for various reasons. Some is because they weren't happy with their jobs, or their jobs were mandating things that they didn't want to do, or they didn't like the school systems, or they just didn't like the temperature of what's going on, the taxes, the costs, whatever reason. So a lot of people have left. A lot of people have discussed leaving. I think a lot of people around here want to move down south or move to some place where they're more secluded or away from people. I think there's just a lot of people just done with living close to each other. So WBZ had a news report about this subject. So I thought it'd be something that we can discuss, and I found some good statistics we can look at and discuss too. So let me just play that video.
Yeah, a new report just out today by the Mass Taxpayers Foundation says more than 100,000 people moved out between 2020 and 2022. Now, for a couple of weeks, I've been researching tonight's Question Everything, which is, why are people leaving and where are they going? Duck boats and ducklings, the Pops and Pats, leaf peeping and lobster. From Boston to the Berkshires, Massachusetts is great. Rebecca Connell thinks so. The married mother of two from Virginia thought she might be a lifer, but...
So you and your husband have made a big decision.
We're leaving Boston after 12 years.
And what is that like for you?
It's bittersweet, I would have to say. I love this city.
Her family also loves the outdoors, so they're building a home in Vermont. Lots of land and a mortgage that's not a lot more than their rent in Roxbury.
Why do you think more people are leaving than coming in?
Massachusetts is expensive.
United Van Lines has been tracking migration patterns for 45 years. The moving company's most recent study ranked Massachusetts 7th on the top 10 list of most moved from states. 4 of the top 10 are in the Northeast. Eileen Cummings told me more about her company's study.
A lot of Northeastern traffic. We see a lot of migration, not only to Florida, but also to states like North Carolina and South Carolina.
Massachusetts has a 56% outbound rate. That means for every 100 people that come and go, 56 are leaving, 44 coming in. The company also surveys customers about why they're grabbing the moving boxes.
When it comes to these statistics, thank you, there is a whole lot to unpack. 36% said that they wanted to move closer to family. 26% mentioned a new job. 22% mentioned retirement, while 18% said they were looking for a better lifestyle. Interestingly enough, only 11% mentioned cost of living. Of course, it could be an undercurrent for all of these categories.
We're seeing a lot of migration to cities that have all the amenities of larger cities, but an easier pace of life.
And the pandemic was a factor. People were working from home, and many didn't stop. No office, no reason to live close by. Rebecca is fully remote. She'll change her address, but keep her job.
I'm in the IT cybersecurity space, and I will.
You can work anywhere.
Yep.
And it wasn't the case before the pandemic.
No.
Which is kind of a sad thing.
Yes.
They love the state, and yet they need to move because it's a lot cheaper and because they want a better lifestyle. It's interesting. The 4 places where people are moving to, 4 of the top 10 are the least densely populated areas in the country. So people want to find space, and they can do it for a lot less.
So there's a lot to unpack in that, a lot to unpack. So if people missed some of that, because it was kind of a long video clip, for every 100 people that move, Massachusetts loses 56. Right? So there's 56 that move out and 44 that come in. So we should be losing people. And the statistics, I went and looked at the statistics from United Van Lines. And if you're watching on YouTube, I have them up on the screen. If you're listening on the podcast, I'll read some of these because it's actually pretty astounding. Some of these things. A lot of them say they're moving outbound for family. Now that one, I was talking with some people, and I don't think it's family like, oh, I have family that lives down south. I think it's like, I don't want my family growing up in this environment in Massachusetts, because that's been my lived experience here. Is there's a lot of people that just so fed up and done with what's going on in this state. They're like, I'm out. I'm not gonna raise my kids here. I'm not gonna grow old here. I'm just getting out.
Yeah, and as you know, and many people know, during the summer of 2020, I actually started a moving company myself during that period. And the very first move that I did is I moved a guy out of Worcester, Massachusetts, and moved him into Winter Haven, Florida. So I drove the truck down there myself, and I got to see it firsthand of people moving out. And I think a lot of this started, like they said, in the pandemic, where you had a lot of the blue states had draconian lockdown measures and stayed locked down, where you had other states that were opening up and were, I mean, it seems like forever ago now, but it wasn't that long ago, where you couldn't get a meal, you couldn't go out to eat in Massachusetts because all the restaurants were closed down.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you had other states that were completely wide open. So you saw a lot of that migration start then.
It's funny because you say that, right? And I went and looked. Well, later, a little bit later on, I'll show you the statistics, because I thought the same thing. I thought what you would see is the last couple of years there's really been a driving force, and then the percentages would be a lot higher. However, I looked back to 2015, and there's been a net outflow of residents out of Massachusetts since then. Obviously, the last couple of years are a couple percentage points higher. But I think probably because pandemic related situations, or as this woman said, hey, now her job has changed, so they don't have to live here anymore. They can move somewhere else. And this is a problem because in the next slide I'm going to show, we're going to see the average age of people that are leaving. So again, last week we discussed immigration and how immigrants are coming here and they're the workforce age, and they could be helping out in their countries. It's kind of similar with this. The majority of people leaving are between 35 and 65. And this is like your prime years. This is when you're making most of your money. When you're 18 to 34, you're either going to college, working minimum wage jobs, getting a skill. You're not making top dollar. And the next slide that we have is how much these people make. So 22% make between $100,000 and $150,000 that are leaving. 46% make $150,000 or more. So we are talking about is 68% of the people make six figures plus, and they're moving. And they're moving because they're saying it's unaffordable. They're moving because they're saying, I don't want my family to be here. They're moving because, pandemic related things. Now they can get on their laptop and work from anywhere. And I just don't want to deal with this. And here's the problem is if politicians don't start recognizing this, because I think right now, we're going to talk about this later. Like I said, what bills are up at the State House. If we don't start planning better, a lot more people are going to leave, because our politicians, our representatives are planning just to tax and tax and tax more, because they say, hey, listen, we've taxed a lot already, and nothing's really bad's happened yet. But I think what's happening, this is the slow undercurrent. These are the little things that are starting to happen. And my fear is, as the tax burden gets higher, as the cost goes up, as the regulations become more burdensome to businesses, you're going to see this accelerate. And then what's going to happen is you're going to be left with a bunch of people here who can't afford to leave and are going to be left holding the bag. Because one of the things that we saw this in New York too, like you said, when the pandemic and you had your company, and I'm sure you saw this too, the people that have the money can move. They can leave whenever they want. If you have money, you can just say, you know what, I'm done, I'm moving. It's the low income people, it's the elderly, it's the fixed income people that get hurt the most by this.
Yeah, and even throughout the implications from the planning perspective, think about it just from a personal relationship standpoint. There's, it's one thing if you have someone moving out of the state for good reasons, they got a new job opportunity, maybe they're retired, they're going to some place with a warmer climate. But I think what we've noticed is that a lot of the reasons that people are leaving are not necessarily for good reasons. It's either taxes are going up, or it's because the culture here has changed and it's not favorable. I mean, I can't count how many people that are more of the conservative minded have just gotten fed up with what's going on in Massachusetts and have decided to leave. Yep. So essentially what's happening is you have people leaving for kind of not the right reasons. And it's
yes.
from a state perspective, we want those people, like those are our neighbors. We want those people to stay here and live here and thrive here. Like we want them to grow their families here, but they're, and they want to too, but then they're saying, hey, like this isn't a small decision that they're making. They're packing up their entire livelihood. You think about it, like you put all your personal household items into a truck, you're pretty much getting rid of all your personal relationships in one state, and you have to start from scratch in a completely new area. It's like, this is a huge decision that people are making. Yep. And they're making it because they're saying life has become pretty much unsalvageable here in Massachusetts. So we're going to go and start in a brand new world.
And I appreciate the people, like we always talk about people doing something. And if you're going to stay here, like be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So we hope people that stay here and they say, hey, listen, I love Massachusetts. There's some things that need to be fixed. We can fix them. Let's fix them. Let's hold these decision makers and policy makers accountable, because a lot of these problems are born out of politicians or just bad planning. There's just a lot of bad things that go on, and that the people that make the decisions never have to pay the price for their bad decisions, and everyone else has to pay the price. So one last thing too, I have this slide up, and I found the years from that United Van Lines. You can go to their website. I'll leave links on the YouTube video if people want to go on the YouTube video, or if you're on the podcast, you can look at United Van Lines, and they have all these statistics. I went back far as 2015 because before that it was kind of hard to find information on them. But there has been a net outbound, like I said, like 2015, 57% outbound, 2016, 54%, 2017, 56%, 2018, 55%, 2019, 55%, 2020, 56%, 2021, 57%, 2022, 56% outbound. So that means we're losing more people than we're gaining. And one thing I was thinking about is sometimes businesses are in business because there's a need for them to do the job, not because they're good at business. And I think that also could be said of politicians in some states. I think Massachusetts is very lucky because we have a couple of things. We're close to the water. We have businesses that have been longstanding. We have seafood, import, export, and we have good colleges that just happen to, when Harvard opened or some of these other colleges opened 100 years ago or however long they opened, right? That attracted a bunch of people here. What happens is if we keep making it more and more unbearable, some of these things are just going to leave or go away, or people won't come. So these politicians that make these policies and say, hey, they're effective and everything works and we're great people. No, your policies stink. The only, I guess, benefit for these people is because of things that were there before, they're able to get away with their bad decisions. Kind of like I said earlier, sometimes there's businesses that really stink at the business they do, but the problem is, for people, is it's the only business in town, so they have to go. So I hope what happens is we start looking at this stuff and again, it's always holding your representatives accountable, holding your politicians accountable, and asking and wanting and making them do better.
The interview in that news segment with that lady is like point in case too, because with remote work becoming more like widely spread throughout the country, you're seeing a lot more opportunities. Like Boston was originally the first Silicon Valley, really. Like you had most of the internet startup companies were in the Massachusetts area, and then with the non-competes and everything else, a lot of people said doing business is not that great here. So then everyone moved to, California of all places. It's kind of hard to believe that now that they're more business friendly, but back then they were with non-competes and everything. And, now with remote work spreading, I think a lot of people and a lot of companies are saying, hey, we don't necessarily need to be beholden to Massachusetts or Silicon Valley anymore. Now we can really go anywhere. And it's crazy because now you hear like Miami is becoming, they call Miami is the new Silicon Valley. And then you see all these other states like Alabama that you would think is like, the least technology inclined state out there. But then they're starting to build like a tech sector. Obviously you have Austin, Texas is a big tech sector. They're a new hot place for technology companies. So this shift has really removed the need to have people in those areas where you can really be all over the country now. And the funny thing is you can see it in truck prices.
Yes.
So if you tried to rent a U-Haul from Massachusetts going down to Florida, you're going to pay about $2,000 for that U-Haul in total. If you try to rent that same U-Haul from Florida all the way up to Massachusetts, it's going to be about $300.
Yep.
Because there's such a high demand for them to bring trucks back up to Massachusetts, because there's so many people, from the Northeast, whether it's New York or Massachusetts, going down south, and there is the other way, that it's all reflected in the truck prices, which is pretty funny.
Very well said. And I think what happens is you and I always, we're here, we're active politically. We want to make things better for everybody. And I think what's happened, this is the canary in the coal mine. And I don't care who does. I really don't care. I don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or a mix of everything. But we need to get better. We need to do better. And we need to read the tea leaves, like all these sayings. We just need to do a better job and figure out ways, because as you said, it's easy now for a lot of these companies to be remote. People not even have to be in the state to do business. And it's the big money business that can leave. It's the tech sector. They can leave now. Everything's easy for them. So we really have to be on our game and really have to make this a welcoming state.